Hi everybody, this is Mindy. This is video number 2 in our basic drawing series. And today we're going to talk about shading techniques. And shading is really important because this is how we make things look real. It's how we show where light hits an object and where things are in shadow. And so it's really important if you want things to look three-dimensional on your flat paper. So we're going to do this drawing here together, but that'll be in the next video. What we'll learn today is how to make your shadows and shading look real so that you can make your object look more three-dimensional. So some basic shading techniques. Remember, these are just tips, just ways for you to get started. You're the artist. You're going to make the rules. But some basic techniques are these. The first one, well, first, before I show you these, this is basically what we're doing. We are turning a flat circle into a three-dimensional looking object. It's still flat, of course, it's on the paper, but we're turning a circle into a sphere, or we can turn a triangle into a cone. These depict a three-dimensional object, whereas these are two-dimensional. And it's all done with shading. That's all. So once you learn how to shade and learn some different techniques and you practice some, it's going to be super easy. And it's going to be how you can make things look more real on your paper. So if you look down here, all I've done here is draw a circle. And then I choose where my light's coming from. So I choose that my light is coming from here. It can be the sun, or it can be a light bulb, whatever you imagine it to be. But if my light source is coming from here, then it's shining this direction onto my circle or my sphere. So the spot that gets the direct sunlight is going to be the lightest, right? Because the sun is hitting it, the light is hitting it, so there's no shadow, no shading. But as the circle or the sphere goes away from us, it's going to get dark. So the spot farthest away from your light source will be the darkest. Okay? And then moving towards your light source will get lighter and lighter. And then, of course, you can do a shadow on the ground underneath. So here's another one. Started out as a triangle. I just curved the bottom to make it a cone. Chose my light source. It's coming from this direction, so it's shining this way. This side of my cone will be the lightest because it's getting direct sunlight. The spot farthest away from my light source is the darkest because it's getting no light at all. And then I just make a smooth transition from dark to light and then add my shadow. These are just basic techniques to make something look more real. So some basic shading techniques. These are just 3 that I use all the time. There are other ways to do it. There's stipple, there's several other ways. But again, you're the artist and you'll figure it out and you'll figure out what works best for you. But here is a good place to get started. So the first one is smooth, and it's just like it sounds. You're going to start dark and you're shading smooth, which means you might use the flat side of your lead to get a smooth shading. And the idea when you practice your shading techniques is to start really, really dark and move to really, really light. And I'll give you a tip that artists use, and that is if we're not sure if the transition from dark to light is smooth enough, we squint our eyes. If you squint your eyes at it, it'll show you right away whether it's a smooth transition or if you need to go back in and smooth out that transition from dark to light. So once you've done a line of it, squint at it and see if you need to adjust that at all. Okay, and then we talked in the first video about sometimes people like to use their finger to smooth out their shading. That's a good time to use your finger to smooth out the shading. And that works on any of these. You can use your finger, or you can use a Q-tip, or you can use one of those blending stumps that we talked about. Okay, so that's smooth. Another one, and I use this one all the time, is hatch. Hatch is just like smooth, only this time you're using lines to shade with. And the way you get your dark areas is to make your lines thicker and harder and closer together. Right? And then as you get lighter, you make your lines lighter and you spread them out. And that's where we know you're using hatch. See my hatch lines? That's hatch. But again, you still have to be smooth from dark to light. It's a smooth transition. But you're shading using lines. Now, it takes practice to do hatch, and the next one, crosshatch. It won't come that easily to you. But once you practice and once you're drawing with it, and you may choose it to be your favorite as well. One thing to try to stay away from is doing this kind of thing. We're not coloring in. So make sure you're lifting your pencil up each time. So it's a line, not coloring in. And also, you want to steer clear of curved lines. Sometimes when we first start out doing hatch, our lines are curved, and you'll find that doesn't really work usually with what you're drawing. Ends up looking like hair, really. Okay, and then the third one is crosshatch. And this is the one I use all the time. It just fits my style and I like it and I can do what I want with it and it works well for me. But it's the same thing. It starts out as hatch. So you start off with your hatch lines. But then to get darker, you would go with hatch lines in another direction right on top of it. And then another direction right on top of it. So you can still get your solid black dark areas. But it's from overlapping lines in all different directions. So as I'm moving out into the light areas, my lines are getting farther apart, and you can see that I'm using hatch. Again, avoid doing this where you're not picking up your pencil. You can do that eventually once you get good at it. But until you get really good at hatching, cross-hatching, make sure you're picking up your pencil. Okay, that's basic shading. So what I'd like you to do is practice making a circle into a sphere. So draw a circle. You can, if you'd like, use a coin to trace around to get a perfect circle. If you're not comfortable with a circle or you don't like that your circle is sometimes shaped like an egg, you can do an egg. It works just fine. But draw your circle. Choose your light source. So I'm going to say my light's coming from here. That means my light's going to hit my circle here. So this is going to be probably the lightest area of my circle. What's the darkest area? The side opposite my light source. So I know that right here, it's going to be my darkest spot. So I'm going to start there. And remember, I've done crosshatch for a long time, so I'm kind of fast at it. And once you've shaded your dark area, then you kind of move toward your light area. And just like in your practice shading techniques, you want that transition to be nice and smooth. If you have to squint your eyes at it to help you determine that, you can do that. And then don't forget too that your eraser is a great drawing tool. We don't use erasers to erase mistakes. There are no mistakes. Okay, so it looks like I probably carried my shading out a little too far because I don't have a light spot for my light source. So I'm going to take my eraser and draw with my eraser. I'm doing cross-hatching with my eraser because it's a drawing tool. Okay. Now I can put my shadow, remember, opposite the light source. Opposite the light source, you'll have your shadow. And I'm going to put it right down here on the ground. Pretend that my ball is bouncing. Okay, that's all there is to it. Try that a few hundred times and you'll get really good at shading with a light source. And try different objects too. Try your cone, which is basically a triangle but with a curved bottom. Okay, you can even try it with any kind of shape. You try a letter of your name and try shading it with a light source. But just practice your shading techniques. And then in the next video, we'll do this. Thanks.